He signed the divorce papers mocking me, until the judge read my father's will out loud. Please stay with us for more interesting stories. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel. Liking our videos and sharing with your loved ones is worth for us. Your support means your love for us. He slid the pen across the table with a smug smile and said, "Finally free of you." I didn't respond. I just looked at him, calm and quiet, while inside, a storm of emotions swirled. After years of emotional abuse, gaslighting, and lies, I was used to his games. He always needed to win, to feel superior. And today, he thought he had won. But he had no idea what was coming next. Our marriage hadn't been good for a long time. In the beginning, he was charming. But slowly, things changed. He started to control everything, what I wore, who I talked to, even how I spoke. If I ever tried to speak up, he'd twist my words or make me feel crazy. When I finally decided to leave, he acted like it was all his idea. He even told his friends that I was begging him to stay, and that he was doing me a favor by letting me go. While the divorce dragged on, my father was quietly dying. He had always been a private man, but we were close. He didn't like my husband and told me many times that he didn't trust him. In his last days, he called me to his side and handed me a sealed envelope. "Make sure this is read when the divorce is finalized," he said. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded, holding back tears. The day of the court hearing came. My ex walked in confidently, wearing a suit and flashing fake smile. He acted like he was on a stage, performing for everyone in the room. He signed the final papers with flair, then leaned back in his chair, grinning like a man who thought he'd won. Then the judge cleared his throat and said, "Before we proceed, there is one last matter. A will submitted by the late Mr. Samuel Hart." That was my father. The courtroom fell silent as the judge opened the envelope and began to read. My heart pounded. "To my daughter, I leave my home, business, and full estate, on the condition that she remains legally married at the time of this reading. If she is not, the entire estate is to be donated to charity." My ex's smile froze. The judge looked up. "As of this moment, the divorce papers are signed, and Mr. Hart's condition is not met. Therefore, the estate will be donated." His face turned red. He stood up, shouting, "No, this is a trick. She planned this." I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. My father had already spoken for me. News of the courtroom drama spread fast. People shared the story online, calling it the will twist of the year. Some called my father a genius. Others said I was cold. I didn't care. I walked out of that courtroom with nothing material, but everything that mattered. Peace, freedom, justice. He thought he had the last laugh. But the final laugh? It wasn't his. It was my father's. He told everyone he was upgrading wives, said I was boring, too plain, too much of a nag. He laughed about it with his friends, made jokes online, and even introduced his new girlfriend before we were legally separated. She was younger, flashy, always hanging on his arm like a trophy. They went out everywhere, restaurants, clubs, parties, acting like nothing mattered. He made sure I saw every photo. Through all of it, I stayed quiet. I had more important things to focus on. My dad was dying. I spent most of my time with him, holding his hand, helping him through treatment. He didn't talk much about my marriage, but he noticed everything. One afternoon, while I was sitting beside him, he looked at me and said, "He'll regret it. Just be patient." I nodded, not knowing what he meant. A few weeks later, my dad passed. His lawyer handed me a sealed letter with instructions. I was told to give it to the judge on the day of my divorce hearing, nothing more. The courtroom was full that day. My ex strolled in like he owned the place. His girlfriend was sitting in the back row, chewing gum and smiling like it was a show. He was confident, acting like he'd won before it even started. We went through the usual paperwork. The judge asked if everything was final. My lawyer then handed the judge the sealed envelope for my father. He opened it, read silently for a moment, then adjusted his glasses and spoke. "As per the will of Mr. James Rowland, there is a binding clause concerning the marital estate and shared business assets. Both parties are required to be present in court at the time of the divorce and must agree to finalize without coercion." Everyone nodded, unsure what that meant. The judge continued. Upon the husband's signature confirming the divorce, he forfeits any claim to jointly held business accounts and marital investment. These assets will transfer solely to the wife. Additionally, the clause states any attempt to withdraw or reverse the process will trigger a legal freeze on the husband's personal and business finances for 90 days. My ex jumped from his seat. "That's not legal. I didn't agree to that." The judge calmly replied. "The clause was reviewed and notarized. It's valid. And you just signed." He turned pale. He tried to argue, tried to blame me, even threatened to appeal. But it was too late. The moment he signed those papers, everything kicked in. My accounts were released. His were frozen. He stormed out, his girlfriend trailing behind him, not smiling anymore. Within days, people were talking. Online groups picked up the story. The man who mocked his wife and lost it all in one sentence, someone wrote. I never raised my voice. I didn't fight back. I didn't need to. My father handled it all, and justice handled the rest. He smirked and said, I hope you rot. The judge raised an eyebrow and reached for the will. That was the last thing he expected to hear in that courtroom. Our marriage was nothing but control. He made me feel small every single day. Gaslighting was his favorite game. He'd cheat and then blame me for not being in it. If I cried, he'd laugh. If I asked questions, he'd say I was crazy. Every time I tried to speak up, he twisted things around to make me feel guilty. In public, he was the charming husband. At home, I was nothing more than a target. My father watched quietly. He never liked my husband, but he never pushed. He just observed, listened, and took mental notes. He saw me break a little more each year. He saw how I held everything together, just trying to survive. I wanted to leave, but I waited. Not because I was weak, but because I was watching too. My father's health was fading fast. We both knew time was short. He told me he was preparing something, and not to say a word. I trusted him. When my father passed, he left behind only one instruction: hand the will to the judge when the divorce was final. By the time we reached court, my husband was louder than ever. He joked with his lawyer. He brought his new girlfriend and let her sit right behind me. She wore perfume I used to wear and kept smirking like she'd won something. He made comments loud enough for people to hear, about how I'd leave with nothing, and he'd already moved on. He signed the papers with a dramatic sigh, like it was a burden to be freed from. Then I gave the judge the envelope. Silence followed as the judge read. He cleared his throat. This is the last will and testament of Mr. Edward Collins. The document outlines that all personal property, business holdings, and real estate will be passed down only if his daughter remains married at the time of the will being read. If she is divorced at that moment, the assets will be split, unless the husband initiated the divorce and showed public misconduct. The judge paused and looked directly at him. Given the signed divorce papers, public photos, and witness statements, Mr. Collins is excluded from the inheritance entirely. The assets now belong solely to his daughter. He stood up so fast the chair tipped back. What? That's illegal. You can't do that. The judge replied, it's binding. It's been reviewed and notarized. He turned red. His girlfriend froze. No more smirks. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I felt peace for the first time in years. He stormed out, slamming the courtroom door behind him. His tantrum was the last noise he'd ever make in my life. I walked out with everything: money, property, and freedom. Sometimes karma takes its time, but when it hits clean. The judge looked up and said, per the will, the estate goes to the faithful spouse. And just like that, his smirk vanished. When it all began, I was shattered. I had just found out he had been cheating for months. He didn't even try to hide it. He was cold, distant, and proud of the pain he caused. I cried every night. I blamed myself. I didn't eat. I barely slept. I thought I had failed. My friends tried to help. They told me to be careful. They said he was probably hiding money. They knew how sneaky he could be. I didn't want to believe it at first, but deep down, I knew they were right. Every time I asked about our accounts, he brushed me off. Every time I asked about our home or savings, he gave vague answers. My father didn't trust him either. From the first year of marriage, he always had doubts. Something about him feels fake, he once told me. He never pushed me to leave, but he always watched closely. When I told him about the divorce, he wasn't surprised. He didn't say much. Just listened. And then, quietly, he made a plan. Without telling me the details, he met with his lawyer and changed his will. He said it was just in case anything happened. I didn't ask questions. I was too lost in the mess of the divorce to think about anything else. On the day of the hearing, the air felt heavy. My ex walked in confident, cracking jokes with his lawyer. He looked relaxed, like everything was going his way. He glanced at me a few times, smug and sure. I sat still, holding back the storm inside me. He signed the divorce papers quickly, acting like it was just paperwork. Then the judge mentioned there was a will submitted for. It was my father's. The judge opened it and began to read aloud. The room grew quiet. My estate, including business assets, property, and holdings, shall be passed to my daughter, only if she remains married at the time of this reading. If a divorce has occurred, the estate shall go to the spouse who has demonstrated faithfulness and transparency. If neither qualifies, the assets shall be donated to a named charity. The judge looked at my ex. Evidence of infidelity and hidden assets has been submitted. Therefore, the estate is awarded to the faithful spouse. My ex froze. He stood up. No, that's not fair. She's divorcing me. I didn't agree to this. The judge said, you just did when you signed. His face drained of color. For once, he had nothing to say. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. It was over. I left the courtroom with everything. My father's legacy, my dignity, and a future without lies. He thought he had won. But in one moment, I went from the one left behind to the one in control. He laughed in my face. But the courtroom went silent when the judge said, "Before we proceed, there's a letter from the deceased." My father was always a quiet man. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it mattered. He watched everything, especially when it came to the people I trusted. He never fully accepted my husband. He said he smiled too much when others were hurting. I didn't understand it then. I do now. After the separation, my ex wasted no time showing off. He told everyone he was finally free and about to live the life he deserved. He posted pictures with new women. He made jokes about me online. I stayed quiet. There was no point in arguing with someone who only wanted attention. The divorce hearing was set. He showed up wearing an expensive suit and sunglasses indoors. He smiled at everyone like it was a party. When the judge handed over the final papers, he signed them with a dramatic flair, like he was sealing his victory. He leaned back, arms crossed, waiting for the moment I would fall apart. But then the judge paused. "This morning," the judge said, "our office received a sealed envelope. It was from Mr. Alan Myers, the father of the petitioner, and it's to be opened only after the divorce papers are signed." The room went quiet. The judge opened the letter and read it silently first. Then he spoke. "This letter is a legal amendment to Mr. Myers's will. He left behind a personal and business estate valued at several $1,000,000. However, the inheritance is not left directly to his daughter. It is instead placed in a trust titled to her and her lawful husband." My ex sat up fast. "Wait, what? What does that mean?" The judge looked straight at him. "It means the inheritance belongs to the married couple. But you just signed the divorce. The marriage is now legally dissolved. You are no longer her husband." He started sweating. "Can we cancel it? I didn't know about this. I want to fix it." The judge shook his head. "You can't undo what's already signed. The documents are processed. The trust is void. The estate will now transfer fully to the wife by separate request." My ex tried to argue, but the damage was done. Cameras were outside. Reporters were waiting. Within hours, the story hit the news. Man loses millions after rushing divorce. It went viral. He avoided the spotlight after that. No more flashy suits. No more girlfriends on his arm. He stopped smiling. I walked out of the courthouse calm, quiet, just like my father used to be. He thought he had won. But my father's final word changed everything. He signed and said, "Best decision of my life." The judge said, "That's debatable. Let's read the will." He had betrayed me in the worst way. The lies, the cheating, the insults in public, it all became normal for him. He didn't care how it affected me. He told people I was weak, boring, and holding him back. He made me feel invisible. When I finally filed for divorce, he acted like I was doing him a favor. While all this was happening, my father passed away quietly. He didn't say much in his final days. He knew I was hurting but didn't ask for detail. All he did was hand me a sealed envelope and say, "When it's done, give this to the court." That was all. I didn't ask questions. I trusted him. The day of the final hearing came. My ex walked in, smiling like a winner. He winked at people in the courtroom. He didn't have a lawyer. He said he didn't need one because he already won. He picked up the pen, signed the papers, and said, "Best decision of my life." Then my lawyer handed the judge the envelope. The judge opened it slowly. He took a few minutes to read the letter. Then he cleared his throat. "This is a legally binding statement from Mr. Thomas Greer, father of the petitioner. It outlines instructions for his estate, including stock holdings, commercial properties, and family business shares. These are to be transferred only upon confirmation of divorce finalization." The room got quiet. My ex leaned forward, curious. The judge continued, "However, there's a condition. If the husband is the one who initiates abandonment through infidelity, emotional neglect, or public humiliation, he forfeits all rights. The assets then transfer fully to the wife. No appeal. No reversal." My ex blinked. "What?" The judge looked at him. "You signed. You sealed your fate." He jumped up. "No, I didn't know. I thought this isn't fair." The judge didn't argue. "The evidence of your behavior is included with the will. Photos, messages, and public statements. The clause is clear and has been verified. You don't get anything." He sat back down slowly. His hands were shaking. People in the courtroom whispered. Some chuckled. One woman covered her mouth to hide her grin. The bailiff looked down to stop from smiling. The judge kept a straight face, but the satisfaction in his voice was hard to miss. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Everything had already been said. The stocks, the property, the business, it all shifted to me. He lost everything with one signature. He had no idea what my father had prepared. This wasn't revenge through shouting or anger. It was silence. It was patience. It was justice served cold. And in the end, it left him with nothing but regret. He sneered. "You'll be nothing without me." I didn't have to say a word. The will did it for me. He always acted like he was the one in control. He made sure everyone believed he was the provider, the successful husband, the reason we had anything at all. In truth, most of what we had came from my father's quiet support and investments. But my ex was good at pretending. He loved attention, and he loved putting me down while collecting praise from others. When the divorce began, he didn't hold back. He made jokes about me in front of people. He called me ungrateful, lazy, and dead weight. He even told reporters from a small local blog that he was finally free from the anchor, holding him back. His words spread fast. People started treating me like I was just in the way. I didn't argue. I just nodded and stayed silent. What no one knew, except my father, was that I didn't need to fight back. My dad saw who he really was long before I did. He told me once, "A man that loud usually crashes the hardest." He was right. Before he passed, my father updated his will. He included a special clause meant for one reason: to protect me. The will stated that the full estate, including properties, business shares, and personal assets, would go to the woman wronged, but only if she chose not to forgive the man who caused the pain. If she signed a release of forgiveness, the assets would be split. If not, everything went to her. At the final divorce hearing, the judge read the clause out loud. My ex's face dropped. At first, he thought he had won again. Then the judge explained that the assets were frozen until I decided what to do. He turned to me and said, "Just sign it. Be fair." I said nothing. The next few days, he sent emails, left voicemails, even showed up at my apartment. He went from proud to desperate. He begged me to sign the forgiveness release so he could get his share. He said he'd make things right, that we could settle like adults. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. A week later, the assets transferred, fully to me. He got nothing. Debt caught up with him quickly. He'd borrowed against a future he thought he owned. Without access to the will's inheritance, he couldn't pay back what he owed. Cars were taken. His business partner dropped him. The world he built on lies started to fall apart. I used the money to start something real. A foundation in my father's name. A business of my own. I built a future, not out of revenge, but out of purpose. People who once doubted me now reached out with praise. But I still said little. There was no need for loud victories or long speeches. Turns out silence is the best revenge. He signed, smirking. Now I can finally live. And the judge replied, "Actually, about that. He was always good at twisting things. A smooth talker, charming in front of others, but cold and controlling behind closed doors. He didn't just manipulate me, he manipulated everything. The prenup? He pushed it on me right before the wedding, telling me it was just to protect both of us. The finances? He kept everything in his name, claiming I wasn't good with money. And our friends? He picked them, filtered them, and made sure they only ever heard his side of every story. For years, I stayed silent. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I let him believe he had full control. What he didn't know was that my father saw through him from the beginning. My dad never liked how he acted, but he respected my choices. Still, he prepared something quietly, just in case. Months before the divorce, he moved most of his wealth into a private trust. No one knew. Not even me at the time. The trust had clear instructions. It would only activate based on the outcome of the divorce, and only once the judge gave the final ruling. If my husband was respectful and fair, he could receive a portion. But if he acted out, lied, or tried to manipulate the process, he would be removed entirely. My ex had no idea. On the final day in court, he walked in like he owned the room. He laughed, made small talk with the clerk, and signed the papers with a wide grin. "Now I can finally live," he said loudly, as if he'd escaped a prison. The judge opened the file and read the letter attached to the trust. This document outlines the release of assets under the Edward Lane Trust. It includes stock holdings, properties, and business interests valued at over $9 million. The terms are as follows. The ex-husband will receive no portion of the trust if he is found to have manipulated financial documents, hidden assets, or behaved in a dishonorable way during the proceedings. The courtroom went still. The judge looked at him directly. "You submitted false financial reports and failed to disclose offshore accounts. Therefore, per the terms, you receive nothing." He tried to interrupt. "Wait, what accounts?" "I didn't." The judge held up a hand. "You signed under penalty of perjury. It's over." He slumped back in his seat. His lawyer leaned away, avoiding eye contact. I stood, thanked the judge, and walked out without looking back. Outside, reporters were already gathering. Someone tried to ask me how I felt. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. For years, he thought being quiet meant being weak. He thought he had played the perfect game. But this time, I played better. He lost everything, and I gained the one thing he never expected me to have: the final move. He mocked my tears and said, "You'll miss me." The judge opened the envelope and said, "Are you sure about that?" From the outside, our marriage looked fine. But behind closed doors, it was built on emotional control. He made me feel like I was always wrong. If I cried, he called me dramatic. If I got upset, he said I was unstable. Every time something went wrong, it was somehow my fault. He never yelled, but his silence, his cold looks, and his carefully chosen words made me question everything I did. My dad noticed. He didn't push me, but he warned me. "He's not what he seems," he said more than once. I defended my husband, said he was just under stress. I believed things would get better. They didn't. One day, I finally broke. I had nothing left to give. I filed for divorce. The moment he found out, he laughed. Told me I was being dramatic again. "You won't last a month on your own," he said. "You'll come crawling back." As the court date came closer, he acted like it was a joke. He told friends it was just paperwork that he'd already won. He said I'd regret leaving the man who gave me everything. I stayed quiet. There was no point in arguing with someone who only hurt himself. In court, he was relaxed, leaning back, cracking jokes with his lawyer. When the judge handed over the papers, he signed without reading a single line. Then he looked at me and said, "You'll miss me." The judge paused. "Before we move forward, there's a letter here from Mr. Donald Reeves, the petitioner's father. It's to be read now, per his written request." He opened the envelope and began to read. "In the event of my passing, and should my daughter's marriage end in betrayal, all of my estate, home, investments, company shares, shall be transferred solely to her. The condition is that the divorce must be initiated by her and signed by the husband without contest. If these terms are met, the husband forfeits all rights to any shared or future benefits tied to my estate." My ex sat forward. "Wait, what does that mean? Shared assets? That includes our house." The judge nodded. "Yes. Your signature just confirmed the conditions. The transfer will be processed today." He went pale. "No, I didn't know. I wouldn't have signed." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You were given full opportunity to review the document. You didn't ask any questions." His lawyer looked uncomfortable. My ex stared at me, mouth open but silent. I didn't say a word. I just smiled. All this time, he thought he was in control. He thought he could humiliate me, manipulate me, and still walk away clean. But my father knew the truth long before I did. And with one quiet signature, everything changed. The house, the business, the money, all mine. He lost more than me that day. He laughed. "Guess I'm free now." The judge just said, "Not quite," and opened the will. The room was still. The divorce papers were sitting on the table. He held the pen in his hand, smiling like he had already won. The tension in the courtroom was thick, but he looked relaxed. I sat quietly, waiting. He leaned forward, signed with a dramatic stroke, then pushed the papers away. For years, that man controlled everything in my life. He didn't yell or scream. He didn't need to. His words were sharp and his tone was cold. He made me feel small in front of others. He made me doubt my choices. I wasn't allowed to spend without his permission. He controlled the accounts, the house, even who we spent time with. And somehow, he made it all seem like love. While he was busy telling the world I was the problem, I was making quiet visits to my father. My dad was dying. Each visit, I told him a little more of what was happening at home. He never said much in return, but I could tell he was listening. One day, he just said, "Don't worry. Let him talk. The end will speak louder." My father passed a month before the court date. On the morning of the hearing, his lawyer handed me a sealed envelope and said, "Give this to the judge after the signing." That was it. Now, in the courtroom, my ex thought it was all over. He stood up, stretched, and whispered something smug to his lawyer. Then my attorney handed the judge the envelope. The judge opened it and began reading. "This document is the last will and testament of Mr. Henry Walsh. It includes a legal clause that activates only under specific divorce conditions." My ex raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. The judge continued, reading each condition aloud. If the husband had used coercion, emotional control, or dishonesty during the marriage, and the court confirmed those actions through witness testimony or public record, the husband would forfeit any rights to shared business assets connected to the Walsh family estate. Then came the part that changed everything. Upon the husband's signature confirming divorce, and in light of submitted documentation of controlling behavior and financial manipulation, all business shares, stock, and joint holdings shall be seized and placed into the sole ownership of the daughter. My ex stepped back. "Wait, what documentation?" The judge looked at him calmly. "Your emails, financial statements, and witness declarations. It's all been submitted." His lawyer whispered something, but it didn't help. The judge gave the final order. Assets were being transferred immediately. His name would be removed from the business. His access revoked. He tried to protest, but no one listened. I stood and walked out, not saying a word. Outside, people already knew. News spread fast. His reputation dropped overnight. Clients pulled contracts. Investors backed out. He thought he walked away free. But he walked straight into the very trap his pride never saw coming. This wasn't loud. It was legal. And it was perfect.